Hello there, and welcome to the first video of this channel. Before I start the video, I want to explain you what this channel is going to be about. This is going to be a variety channel, which means that there is going to be a lot of different kinds of content uploaded on here. So if this is not your cup of tea, then don't worry, because there might be something coming that you will like. For example, we're going to feature gaming and many other things. But this video is going to be the telling of a story that I wrote myself and is available on Wattpad, along with other stories that I made. But don't worry, I will read all of them, and if and when other chapters come out of this story, then I will also read them here. The story I'm going to read for you today is called War Torn. It has 10 chapters at the moment that I am recording this, but that might change as I write more chapters in the coming weeks. I'm going to start with the prologue. Let me tell you a story, one of tragedy, violence, but also hope and love. A story of heroes, villains, and those in between. How do I know this story, you ask? Because I was the one who lived it. In the beginning, there was nothing, and then the Creator said, "Let there be light." So came into existence the three realms, first the heavens, home of light and the protectors of good. Then the overworld, where mortals day in and day out live their lives with the constant claw of death in their tracks. And then the underworld, or as most people know it, hell. This is a place of fire and turmoil, where the souls of the damned end up to be punished eternally and become imps in the hellbrood and the firebrood. Or so the stories say. In reality, it's the realm with the most importance, as it keeps creatures of the underworld from invading the other realms. There are cities and laws, as well as codes of honor and royalty. 5 houses split the scorched earth, with House Hellborn as the House of Kings. Though that wasn't always the case. For centuries, the first lords of hell fought amongst each other to decide the fate of the underworld, but that all changed when Saturn Hellfire allied with House Netherstone and took control over the Firebrood. He planned to overthrow House Anubis, open the gates of hell, and conquer all what lay beyond. But to get there, they had to go past the territory of House Hellborn. King Pluto Hellborn had declared neutrality, but to Saturn, his words meant nothing. At dawn, the full force of the Hellfire army attacked and began to storm the gates of Hell's Peak, the capital of the hellish Badlands. The Hellborn fought valiantly, but they were no match for the joint coalition that had formed behind Saturn. Hell's Peak fell in days, and many Hellborn surrendered. Lord Pluto fled north, to the gates of Hell, to keep the Hellfire troops from reaching it, but they were pushed back fight after fight. Soon Saturn reached Castle Omega, heart of House Anubis. Despite Lady Agmon being a formidable opponent with a big army, Saturn knew he had one advantage. He had the blessing of fire at his side. The battle started with the Firebrood taking over some strategic terrain. On the second day, the coalition started their general attack. At first the fort stood undefeated, but then Saturn unleashed the full force of his spells upon the gatehouse. As the smoldering remains of the gates crumbled away, the Hellbrood entered the fort and massacred every last soul within the red walls. With nothing in his way, Saturn now led his armies through the gates of hell. To make sure that Lord Pluto did not follow him, he left Archibald Netherstone and his army at Fort Omega to guard the entrance. There were also rumors that Lady Agmont had escaped the fort before it had been taken by storm, leaving another threat to his plan of total domination. For the decades that followed, Lord Saturn ravaged the overworld, toppling kingdoms and causing death and destruction. The remaining armies of men formed a pact and swore an oath to defeat the demons, and so the alliance was formed. Soon after, the angels came down to earth, and the League of Light joined forces with the alliance. Lord Yahweh of Heaven had sent his best men to even the odds and assure the safety of his kingdom. Together, the combined force of angels and humans pushed Satan back. From hell itself, a rebellion broke out. Lord Pluto and Lady Agmont had taken back Hell's Peak, and now marched on the gates of hell. Saturn saw the writing on the walls, but he refused to surrender to Yahweh and definitely to Pluto. So he ordered Archibald to hold out in Fort Omega and defend it with the lives of him and his men. In the end, it took the Alliance and the League another 10 years to break through the Hellfire forces and march to the steps of the gate. Saturn had ordered a full retreat to the other side. There he would link up with Archibald and swiftly break the rebellion. Then he would lure Yahweh's forces into the narrow pass that led from the gates to the fort. When most of them had entered, he would engulf them with fire, thereby taking out the biggest threat to his troops and winning him the upper hand. By knocking out the angels, the humans stood no chance, and they would easily be overrun. But when he entered the gates, he didn't see the Netherstone troops he had anticipated, but House Hellborn and the surviving troops of House Anubis in battle formation. In front stood both Pluto and Agmon, with a shackled up Archibald behind them. "It's over, Saturn," shouted Pluto. "You have lost the war. Surrender. End the suffering, please." Saturn knew he couldn't take the rebellion on his own. He was trapped in the small pass in which he himself had planned his victory just days before. Finally, he ordered his troops to surrender. At long last, after 5 decades of fighting and millions of dead and wounded, the realms were in peace again. Lord Pluto arranged a peace deal with Yahweh. He would be named King of Hell in exchange for Archibald and Saturn. In the end, Pluto convinced Yahweh to crown his son, Helion, king, and wed him to Saturn's daughter. In return, he would make House Netherstone pledge their eternal allegiance to House Hellborn, as well as the execution of Archibald and Saturn. He would then become Lord of the Eternal Flamelands, and Lady Satis, daughter of Archibald, would become the mistress of the Netherstone. Lady Mephista Hellfire, daughter of Saturn, despised her husband, but with no other choice, she mothered his sons. The oldest Satan, then Lucifer, and the youngest was named Hades. Only her younger son was gifted with the same fire as her father, but it was Lucifer whom she knew was the easiest to manipulate. She knew that by teaching and molding Lucifer, she could place herself into a position of power, but for that to work, she needed to get rid of Helion, Satan, and eventually even Hades. She also knew very well that Pluto still shadowed her every move, so she had to be inventive. When her sons were old and skilled enough to fight and command, an uprising in the capital of House Netherstone had started. The people demanded their mistress to be more involved in the ruling of their own land. Till then, King Helion had almost absolute control over the Red Mountains, the land of House Netherstone. The people demanded that Satis stepped up to Helion and asked him for more control. She refused and asked Helion to send his army, as she had lost control of hers. So Mephista convinced her husband to send Satan as general. She knew that he would be brutal and smash the resistance with ease, but his brutality would be his downfall. She positioned a loyal Hellfire captain in the detachment sent over from the Eternal Flamelands within his army, with the objective to kill Satis and make it seem as if Satan had done so. As expected, Satan crushed the rebellion in a week and returned to the Red Keep to report back to his father. There Mephista's plan was set into motion, and that night purple blood stained the red walls of the palace. In shock, Satan fled the city, as his once loyal soldiers turned on him as soon as they saw what seemed to be his doing. Months that followed, hell fell back into chaos. King Helion went to the Red Mountains to make sure that the rebellion would not take shape again, and left Lucifer as his representative in the Badlands. Mephista also persuaded him to send Hades after Satan, with the reserve army stationed at Dragon's Ridge. When all pieces had fallen into place, Mephisto executed her master plan. She had poisoned her husband for months now and knew that he was weak. When he stopped to set up camp on their way to the capital of the Red Mountains, he fell into a sleep of which he did not wake up. When the word spread to Pluto, he went as fast as he could to Hell's Peak. On his way, he was stopped by Satan, who, in desperation and anger, killed him and his escort. From her office, Mephisto smiled with sinister joy upon hearing the news. Her plan had worked. Lucifer was crowned king and appointed Raven Netherstone, Satis's brother, the only heir of House Netherstone, as the new lord of the Red Mountains. He also ordered Hades to return back to Hell's Peak, but after noticing something fishy going on, he refused to obey and appointed himself as king of the Eternal Flamelands. He also ordered the execution of every Hellfire soldier that was still sympathetic towards Mephisto. Hell became split into two as House Netherstone sided with Hades. The common folk of the Badlands that saw through Mephisto's schemes decided to form their own nation and called it House Daemon. The next decades were peaceful but tense, as the stage for the biggest war since the first interrealmic wars had been set. And with that, we reach the end of the video. Please consider liking and subscribing. There are also links available in the description that will bring you to interesting places, like for example our Discord server or my Wattpad, where these stories are available. A new video will come out, I think, every 2 days, maybe 3. And I'll see you definitely in the next video. Till then, see you in the next one.